And I wonder if you would describe in a little bit more detail what was happening for you then, or what happens for you now when you're in relationship with the wild earth in your body.
I love this question more than anything. I really feel like, we are really reaching at the heart of what embodiment is about to me, because the reflection, the conversation between the body and its earth, I don't feel like in my embodied presence, when I am deeply with the world and of the earth, which is I am an aspect of earth, right? And when I'm fully there, when I'm in the full inhabitation of that relationship, there's no pause between land and body. And therefore, there's this immediate, not just mirroring, but a conversation that guides me into the truest parts of who I am and where I'm going, and into the truest experience of belonging. And how that happens to me in a very, very experiential way is that I love going to the land and being barefoot, which, is one of those ways of instantly being more deeply rooted, but to also begin paying attention to what is moving with me, what is already in the field, not kind of reflecting me, but being me also, right? So in that place where we're not separate, I begin hearing the call and response, the way the wind shuffles through my hair, or the way my fingertips respond to the dancing leaves, or the way a shape, in the branches really calls my body to take a deeper breath and crack. And through these call and responses with the land, between body and land, I deeply, truly find more of myself. And there's restfulness there, and slowness, and peace, and sensuousness. Like I'm animated in a way that nothing else can give me. This mutual cohabitation of life.
Yeah, there's such a participatory flavor to what you're describing that I think is really important to remember. So many of us on the cultural margins have been inspired lately by things like reviving ritual and magic, and what do these things really mean, and earth-based wisdom. And there's a whole movement happening that I think both of us have danced in, and how paradoxical that the very body that makes us feel as though we're very separate in real ways is also the access point to feeling like, no, we're outrageously connected. And it is the experience. It is about experience, not about concept. So what would you say to somebody listening that is like, well, this all sounds really beautiful, but I haven't had the best relationship with my body, and I don't really know where to begin, and I feel like an idiot talking to a plant. And what might be some things you'd share?
Yeah, there's many entryways, and I think that if you are someone who doesn't really quite know how to enter the truly deeply embodied conversation and participation with the earth, I would always start with my own earth. So my own slope and curve and shape. And the way I love inviting some of the people I work with into their bodies at this very initial level is to first wrap our minds around the concept of the body being such an ancient organism that took millennia to develop, that took all this time to adapt and crawl and, like slowly stand. And in that sense, when you notice your skeleton right here, And maybe with a little bit of like a curling of the tailbone or a weaving of the spine, you can just really touch your skeleton in a very sensuous way in the present moment, and to begin giving way to this sensitivity that the skeleton carries, and that is not exactly yours, and it's not mine. It's my skeleton, but not really. And it's your spine, but not really. They've taken millennia to come here, and it only happens that they give you form right now. And so through that just deep breathing into your own structure and skeleton and spine, and creating a little bit of movement and gesture and stacking of vertebrae in a way that helps you connect to your own organism, beginning then to feel the ancient presence of consciousness, of body and bone and tooth and hair in your own personal system. And through that intimacy, and breath and movement with that structure, then reaching maybe to the plant, then feeling this dried up soil under your feet, and then becoming one, because these bones will go back to rest with her skeleton. And a lot of them already do rest there. So there's this deep, imaginative, sensuous conversation with the earth that happens as soon as you attune to your own structure.
That's beautifully said and demonstrated. And it reminds me of the work of Brian Swim, who's a professor at CIIS. And he has, and I've mentioned this to all of you before, I think, the audio series Canticle to the Cosmos. And in it, he describes the deep time of our evolutionary history, not just human beings, but our planet Earth.
Yeah, the
and
cosmology.
He describes how the cosmology, exactly. And he describes how we can see with the light and color range that we can because of the plants. The plants, photosynthesis, gave us our eyes, and the lizards gave us our form. And so we begin to disentangle and dismember that separation.
Exactly.
And I wonder if you could share some of the transformations or changes you've seen happen. You've worked with women who usually likely have come to you because they're longing for more contact with their deep eros in their body, and so they might not have as much access. And so after working with them for a time, what do you see happening? And is there a pattern to that unfolding?
Yeah, definitely. There's certainly things that I can trace back to most women that I've worked with, and it's almost inevitable that there would be a certain kind of, I don't know if awakening would be the right word. I try to avoid the word, but just the just so overused, but just to kind of, I've noticed that one of the primary ways I work with is around really the feminine parts, and bringing a lot of not only movement and breath, but deep inhabitation and awareness, felt awareness into the feminine parts, the flower, the ring of the pelvis, the vaginal barrel, the deep cave, and not to kind of separate those parts from the rest of the body, because the organism is really the most important. But those entryways of relaxing those parts, re-inhabiting those parts, going there, unclenching, opening back to the earth instead of, holding tight and kind of withdrawing further and further up, is absolutely transformative in every body I have ever worked with, and it's just it without failing. it has always brought results, whether they've been the same outcomes or not. There's always been a restoration of fluidity and flow experienced through the system, through the whole body. And of course, that means through and through all of our personal lives, right? Once we open here and unleash this kind of creativity, this breathing, this awareness of we're one with every moment and with the earth, then there's a kind of like just really transforms the way we make love to our partners, the way we decide to how we're going to open up a nest for creativity in our lives, so that instead of defaulting to like make coffee, get on the computer, produce, there's a completely different longing opening up for creativity. Same journey. Yes.
Same. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So I just have one more question for you, Stefana. I'm going to put you on the spot here and just ask if there's a simple practice that one of us might really benefit from, just getting to know our bodies. Like, what would be something I could do every day in the context of a busy life that could help me begin to cultivate the kind of embodied relationship that you're speaking to?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, something simple in the moment every day without feeling too much demand of like carving out a space to do practice. So I think what I would love to offer is basically just bringing together a couple of pieces that we've already named and mentioned as powerful entryways. And one of them is the skeleton and the spine, and then the other would be the feminine bowl. I love thinking of the feminine as the bowl that holds really your deep being. And so for me to even begin, especially if you're someone who doesn't really work in the ways of the body much, it may be, you're like, like we say, oh yeah, of course I know my body. I do yoga and I go running every day, or I've been taking kickboxing classes, right? And so for me, embodiment has a very, very like different subtle tonality, and that's the one I would love to speak to. And so what I want to invite people to begin with is to even come into the pulsation of that sensitivity that opens up when we begin getting to know the signals of our body, to even begin detecting those subtle signals. We have to make room for sensation to spark, to get sparked, and to get larger so we can feel it. And at first, one of my teachers used to say, it's kind of like, opening your eyes in a completely dark space and seeing absolutely nothing, not even your fingertips. And then with keeping your eyes and senses wide open, over time, the whole sky and the million stars begin surfacing on the horizon, because you have developed the muscles of the nighttime eye, right? And so this is what this is about, of if you bring the ancient skeleton to kind of curve and make shape, and maybe even go into the shape of you today, of like one of your primary states and modes. Or, just any way to connect to the skeleton and feel it right here, to weave and curve the spine, the snake of the spine, to kind of pulse the tailbone, so that sensitivity is sparked through the body. And then you will begin feeling, here is more breath reaching here. Here is more aliveness. So I would usually play a song, just like a brief song. Or if I don't have time for a song, I would just like move and pulse and weave and curve the spine, or relax the jaw and loosen up the neck, so the whole skeleton can know itself in the moment and begin feeding this subtle intelligence, is what I call it. And once sensitivity is sparked in this way, I would bring a few breaths deep into the bottom of my feminine bowl, right at the perineum, the very kind of the lips of my pelvic flower, the velvety petals. And I would allow for my breath to reach me there at my flower and to really expand my bowl to the breath, to allow for the womb to receive it and the belly to receive it. And then I would, just with a couple of round movements of my pelvis around its own center, like right now I'm sitting and I'm like making a circle right around my own center. And with that, I am unclenching, loosening up both my jaw, which is immediately connected to the pelvis, as you know, and the ring of the pelvis. And what I am checking into is whether my pelvic bone and my pelvic opening are released and unclenched. And can I, with every breath and every movement, with every inhale and exhale, allow for the lips of the flower and for the ring of my opening into my depths to relax and release even more, to open up to the earth as if to greet the earth and, converse with the earth through my movements. So I'm like sitting in my own bowl, but I'm opening through my bottom to this base sensuous intelligence that's there. And so it's spine and it's skeleton and it's feminine bowl and it's earth.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yes,
Thank you so much for everything.